Life Love Lessons for Women of Faith. So you are a woman of faith. You have overcome over and over again. You have testimonies of passing many tests and victory stories of victorious winnings. Then, why are you hypertensive, high-strung, distressed, depressed, anxious, angry, living life but not loving life? Hi, I'm Teacher Hazel. Teaching is my ministry, my career, my life's work. I too am a woman of faith. I have been through the fire, I have been through the flood. Now, my heart's desire is the love dance of God. I am inviting you to listen to Life Love Lessons and talk to me about your learnings from my teachings. Join me on Thursdays at 10 p.m. on my YouTube channel, Abundant Life Mastery at the Call. And let's talk about life love lessons as women of faith. To Life Love Lessons for Women of Faith. And this is lesson 3 that we have reached. So welcome to Life Love Lessons for Women of Faith 3. And men, remember, you are welcome. You belong. So welcome everyone. Special welcome to those of you who are attending your 3rd session. Of course, welcome to the first timers, but please make sure to listen to lessons 1 and 2. They are available on the same channel. And I must say, excuse me for the frozen bits last lesson. It wasn't me, okay? It was the internet. All right. So welcome to Life Love Lessons for Women of Faith, Lesson 3. Let us pray. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God sustains us. Wherever we are, God is. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. I thank God for you, and I thank you all, each and every one of you, for being here with me. I am Teacher Hazel, Reverend Dr. Teacher Hazel and Gibbs DePeza, better known as Teacher Hazel. I am a teacher by profession, I am a teacher by calling, and teaching is my ministry. I'm also a transformational life coach and a life mastery consultant. And I am proud mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, 10 beautiful stars that light up my life. I am happy and I am grateful. I love my life. And Life Love Lessons is intended to encourage you to love your life. If you're doing it already, do it some more. And if you haven't started doing it yet, learn to love your life. On that note, who did their homework? You remember that word? Homework? Who did their homework? Yes, where you had to look in the mirror and say, I love you. So I wonder if you can put in the chat if you did your homework You can put in the chat what difference it made to your life, or if you learned anything by doing it, right? And we will see what comments you have, if there are any coming up right now. That's provided you did your homework. Remember, the focus is on love. It's life love lessons. It's important that you learn to love you. So I know that people will have their answers, but if we're not ready to go to the chat yet, let's continue. So let me recap a bit from lessons 1 and 2 before we get into lesson 3. So we are all aware of the part that history and culture and the expectations placed upon us as children play in our adult life. But remember, the past may be an explanation for the present, but it must not be used as an excuse for the future. A quote from L. Anthony Watkins, my mentor. Yes, we have to be careful that we do not use the past to determine the future. All right, we need to be very careful about that. And also from lesson 1, that the words of Derek Walcott from his poem Love After Love. Our aim is that you will love again the stranger who was yourself, and you will give back your heart to itself. That's our focus. Loving yourself, giving your heart back to yourself. And I remember someone saying, you love yourself, what's happened to loving God? But we're talking about that spiritual self. And once you love that self, you cannot but love God, because that self is part of God. And from lesson 2, we recall that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, with many complex systems functioning in your body: circulatory system, nervous system, digestive system, respiratory system, skeletal system, muscular system. Aren't you indeed fearfully and wonderfully made? Yes, I think we all agree. No one could have even thought of that design. And the thing is that they work so well together, right? And even more than that, remember, beneath the surface of that body, there is a soul and there is a spirit. And they have a unique relationship between them, and a unique relationship with the eternal spirit, the Holy Spirit of God. So that, as the diagram shows, the body serves the soul serves the spirit serves God. And we recognize that the body is that natural physical part, and it receives information from the physical. The soul is the connector between the physical and the spiritual. So the soul is where the mind is, where the thoughts are, where we make decisions and we make choices. And the spirit feeds the soul, as well as the body feeding the soul with information. And the spirit is what connects directly with God, because he is spirit. And then we have the answer to the big question: who are you? And that answer says, I am a spiritual being currently sojourning in physical form having a human experience. And I ask you to say with me, and I'm asking you again to say, I am a spiritual being currently sojourning in physical form, having a human experience. Yes, beautiful. And you want to know that. You want to be sure about that. Okay? So our format remains the presentation of the lesson, followed by the discussion of your comments and questions that you will have placed in the chat. Remember, we focus the comments and questions on what we're doing. All right? And let me remind you that my main intention is to encourage you to answer the call to your God given purpose, access the more abundant life Christ promised you, and empower you to live a life you love. Remember John 10:10. I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. So if the abundant life is there, let's make use of it. So that's our revision from lesson 1 and 2. And now we move into lesson 3. And lesson 3 begins with 3 questions, life, love lesson questions. And we are going to look at the questions and we're going to deal with the first one first. The first question is, what are some of your beliefs about life? The second one, how do you value your physical senses? And the third one, do you know and use your superpower, super senses, or mental faculties? So we're going to deal with question 1 first. What are some of your beliefs about life? So that's where we're working from. What are some of your beliefs about life? And my reason for asking this is what we believe directly affects how we live. Yes? What we believe directly affects how we live. So we can just move that slide and let's just focus on this question that is before us. Now, why would I ask that question? And why would I make that statement? What we believe directly affects how we live. Let me give you a little example. Now, a lot of us are spiritual Baptists, and a lot of people who are spiritual Baptists will tell you about the days before they became spiritual Baptists. And I've heard a lot of people say, I didn't have that experience, but I have heard a lot of people say that in the days gone by, if they're walking down the road and they see a Baptist approaching or they see a group of Baptists on the pavement, they would cross the road. Now, that happened automatically. It was a reflex action. And that reflex action was based on their belief. Because, the belief still exists, sadly enough, but because in those days, people believed that if you get near to a Baptist, or if a Baptist gets near to you, I don't know, like some little springly used to jump off of the Baptist on you, so you want to keep far. And it was all connected to our history and the prohibition ordinance and all of that, right? But because of what they believed, they operated in a certain way, staying far from us, right? So, what we believe directly affects how we live. So, coming out of our interactions thus far, I believe that one of your beliefs about life is that you are a spiritual being wearing an earth suit that we call a body, having a human experience, which experience has a beginning time and an end time, which means the spirit was before the human beginning began, and the spirit continues after the human experience ends. Now, this belief, if it's new to you, changes your focus on life. It produces a different perspective on life. Because if you believed, and most of us did, because that's what we were taught, that we are human being with a spirit, it means that the human, the physical you, was the focus. So you focused on the physical. The physical was your essence. The physical was the important you. And what we believe directly affects how we live. So a lot of people would tell you that before they got into this spiritual thing and this journey with Christ, that they lived it up. Whether it was wine, women, and song, whether it was fets, whether it was smoking, whatever it was, gambling, what have you, because they were feeding the physical, because that's what they thought was the important thing. We have to enjoy it while we live. And for them, living at that time was about just fetting and spreeing and in some instances being violent and killing and beating up and what have you, right? Because it was physical, material. That was where the focus was. But when you understand that you are a spiritual being, then the focus changes, because what we believe directly affects how we live. So, woman of faith, when you acknowledge that your source is the eternal, magnificent, all powerful, all knowing, all loving, your source is spirit, and you say that you have faith in the source of your strength and that you are made in the image of your source, and you understand that you have access to the strength and the might of your source, an infinite connection to infinite knowledge and power. When you say that, do you believe that story about your life? Do you really believe that story about your life? Or is it that while reading and repeating the new story, you are still believing the old stories that you were taught? That you are helpless, you're worthless, you're unlovable, you're unfortunate. Big dreams are not for you. You can't reach such heights. You're backward, you ain't bright enough. Your family ain't well off enough. Woman of faith, what you believe directly affects how you live. So let's just look at it this way. You're into Christ, you're a woman of faith, and you read Ephesians 1:4-5. According as he hath chosen us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love, having predestinated us unto the adoption of children by Jesus Christ to himself, according to the good pleasure of his will. And John 1:12, but as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name. And what about Romans 8:14-16? For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. For ye have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but ye have received the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of God. Woman of faith, these are your familiar scriptures. You know them by heart. Do you believe them? Let me answer for you. Yes. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I believe them because, well, the Bible doesn't lie. So yeah, I believe. Let me explain. When we are trapped in the lies that have been beaten into us for so long, into the cycle of distraction and pain, we are prevented from recognizing the truth we should believe. The lies we buy about ourselves are rooted into what we believe about our God. So I learned that God, the Almighty God, the creator of all things, loves me, chose me, adopted me, died for me. And I still feeling worthless, invisible, not enough, not good enough, can't do this and can't do that. What am I doing? What am I doing? Even if I don't overtly deny the validity of the premise, I am still doubting that it is true for me, that it applies to me. I know that the truth, yes, I know it's true, but I never fully absorb it and let it shape my identity. And if you are honest, you would realize that that is what has been happening. So you understand why the word says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. You remember the diagram? The body, the soul, the spirit, and the soul being the connector between the body and the spirit connecting directly to God. Well, because we were taught that the body was what was important, the environment of the body and the messages that the body was receiving was being fed to the soul, forming the beliefs that seep down into our subconscious. That is where our focus was, so that our reaction was always in that direction. Now that we know that they were telling us lies, even in their interpretation of the Bible sometimes, they were telling us lies because they wanted to keep us in subjection. Do you see why we need to know who we are and to love who we are and to understand the relationship between us and our Creator? Remember, we are made in His image. So that the new stories have to replace the old. They have to erase the old. Transformation is not a word that you say. It is a process that you go through. So, what do you believe about life? And what do you believe about the word? Some troubling questions. Yes. But we must move on. Of course, this does not end here. These questions form part of many of the lessons going ahead because our focus is on loving yourself and loving life. So we move on to question 2. We said there are 3 questions in this lesson. We move on to question 2. How do you value your physical senses? You have a physical body and you have 5 physical senses: sight and hearing and smell and taste and touch. And these are your equipment to survive and to understand the physical world. So you need them. They are important. But let us understand what has happened. We have been taught that because we're physical, we learn all the physical senses. And we have valued them to the extent that if we lose one of them, we don't want to continue living. If I lose my sight, I'm blind, I can't see, what's the point of living? Or if I can't hear, how I will make out? We fail to recognize that we are so beautifully made that our body has learned how to adapt to different circumstances. But more than that, we begin to see ourselves as handicapped, as different, as not normal if we lose any one of these 5 senses. The fact is that we have put too much value on them. Not saying they're not important. We need them because they are the equipment to understand the physical world. But when we become too dependent on them, we overvalue them so that we lose one of them and we're willing to die rather than go on living, as if that is all that life is about. But I'm sure that you will have heard someone say, or you may have said so yourself, I have a sixth sense. I have a gut feeling. I just know. So then the 5 senses are not all that you have. And they're not the most important ones either. And so I ask you at this point, do you know and do you use your super senses, your superpowers, your mental faculties? Because yes, you do have super senses. And you know, little children, when they're just born and they're babies, they use their super senses because we come with them. We come with them. But what happens is we get it beaten out of us. So that your imaginary friends, what is that? You have to stop having imaginary friends. And you hearing things being said and you knowing things. No, 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 no. Behave yourself. You get licks for that. And you dreaming dreams, that's out of the question. Focus on the physical senses. Learn your 5 physical senses. Your eyes and your ears and your nose and your mouth and your skin to touch it. Right? But no, I'm saying to you, our third question, we have super senses. Do you know them? And do you use them? So we move on to question 3, our super senses. So we have 6 of them, 6 mental faculties, and they are, can we get the next slide, please? Your 6 mental faculties are imagination, Memory. Can we get the slide so that everyone can see where I'm taking them? Okay. So imagination, memory, intuition, perception, reason, and will. These are the six super senses that we have, and we're going to consider them. Imagination. Imagination is the image making faculty of the mind. We think in images. If I were to say to you, your fridge, will the letters F, R, I, D, G, E come up in your mind? No. What will come up in your mind is a picture of your fridge. So that you use your imagination whether you know it or not. Because we're always imagining, but we have to learn to use it profitably and recognize that it is one of our super senses. It's a God given gift that we have. The second one is memory. And memory is the image recalling faculty of the mind. And you know, we often think of memory as what you remember from the past, as something that goes backward in function. But memory also works forward. So, memory, yes, recalls what you will have already imagined or done, but memory also recalls what you are imagining that has not yet happened. And when we go into that aspect of thought and how things develop, you would realize that everything happens in thought before it happens in the physical, happens in the spiritual before it becomes physical. So the memory serves both to bring back memories of the past, but also there is future memory. And then there is intuition. And intuition is the capacity to notice and commune with the infinite guidance system. So that sixth sense, where we just know, we don't know how we know, but we know that voice that we hear speaking to us that we don't like to take on. And then after the fact, we say, you know, I didn't know that, or I was told that, or I heard that, or yeah, because we kind of disobedient, no, right? You see, the infinite intelligence speaks every day to everyone on the planet. But we don't listen. And intuition is only as loud as our willingness to listen. So some people don't hear anything, don't get anything, simply because they're not open to listening to their intuition. Perception is the next one. Perception is the capacity to evolve and expand the meaning we give to our experiences. All right, so okay, so we now have the next slide up and we're back on. I don't know for how long you weren't hearing me, But I've spoken about imagination, memory, intuition, and I'm now on to perception. And I'm saying that perception is how we make meaning of our experiences. And if you've been around me for a while, you would have heard me say, your perception is your reality. Because it is how you perceive your circumstances that determines what they are for you. If you live in a little house and you are happy and it feels big and pretty enough for you, then it is big and pretty enough for you. And that's your reality. And if you live in a 5-bedroom house, but it's only one floor, and you find that you should have a 3-story house, then you are going to be unhappy and uncomfortable because this little house that you're living in, not good enough for you. Your perception is your reality. So whether the house is big or it is small, physically in size, it is how you see it that will make all the difference. And then we have reason. And reason is that capacity to think, believe, and decide. But we have a super reason and an ordinary reason. So reason comes at 2 levels. There's the ordinary reason, which we call logic. So A comes before B, and D comes after C, and that's logical, and we can reason with that. But then we have another level of reasoning, which goes beyond logic. So that when Peter saw Jesus walking on the water, at first, regular, ordinary reason, was tripping his eyes, that had to be a ghost, can't be a real man. And he calls out. He says, yes, it's me, man. And he says, but if it's you, call me and let me walk too. And he gets caught up at the higher level of reasoning. You walking and I'm walking. And then he moves back into ordinary reason. Wait, I'm not supposed to be walking on water. It's not logical. If you walk on water, you're going to sink. And he begins to sink. Different level of reasoning. And the final one is will. And the will is the capacity to give oneself a command and follow it. Now, we hear a lot about willpower. That is a human physical attempt to force yourself to do things. That's willpower, where you're fighting up to do things. The will that we are given, you don't have to fight up, because it is a capacity within us to make decisions and have decisive action. It is a strength, a capacity that we are given. So these 6 mental faculties, 6 superpowers, when we learn about them and we practice, we can use them intelligently through repetition and practice. They are there for us. Now, we use them because they're there, but we don't use them to the extent that we can, because we're not aware of them as the superpowers that they are. So, woman of faith, When you claim that the source of your strength is your faith in God and you know who you are, you know your connection, you know your nature, as I would have said in lesson 2, then you rise. You rise from anxiety and anger and distress and depression, and you are able to live above hatred and to live in love. Because when you learn to live in love, you live in abundance. Remember, God is spirit, and the truth is that you are spirit too. But if you don't know who you are, you can't be who you were meant to be. You can't do what you were destined to do. You can't have what you were made to have. Hence the questions. Who are you? Do you know you? And now, do you know what you believe? How do you value your 5 physical senses? And do you know and use your spiritual or super senses? I hope these questions resonate with you and that you are learning some new perceptions and new perspectives, and that you are creating some other questions in your mind that you will be willing to pursue. So I want to say to you, woman, know thyself. Ye are the temple of the living God. As God had said, I will dwell in them and walk in them. Remember, beneath the surface, you are a spiritual being. Your legacy is abundant life. Know thyself. And let's follow that up with an affirmation. And I want you to repeat the affirmation with me. It simply says, I am me. I love the me that I am. Will you repeat it? I am me. I love the me that I am. And I think that's your homework, right? So 3 times a day, every day, affirmation. I am. And you know the worth of I am. Yes, I know that you know the worth of I am. I am. I am me. I love the me that I am. So let's talk. It's question time. Any questions or comments? You did your homework. Yes. Take a minute, stop, breathe, love me. Taught me to just give myself a few minutes during the day. Beautiful. Yes. So, Tanika, proud of you. Proud of you that you did your homework from last lesson and you saw the value of it. Any other comments or questions? Good night, my dear. Good night. Nice to have you. Hi, sis. Beautiful having you. It's nice to know that you all are here sharing with me. Blessings to you too. Blessings to you too. All right. So I want to say that I hope you enjoyed our 3rd lesson as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. and that you are looking forward to lesson 4, when we will be looking at 7 universal laws and looking a little further into what you believe about life and the word. So that's going to be a little theme that's running through what we are doing. What you believe about life and the word. But we're also going to focus on 7 universal laws in lesson 4. And I hope that you remember the questions from today and you think about them. Don't drop them, don't forget them. So you have the questions from before: who are you? Do you know you? And you have the questions from today: do you know what you believe? Because sometimes you don't even realize what you believe, Sometimes sometimes someone will hear something or see something and they react in a particular way. And everybody will say, well, what's wrong with you? That reaction is based on a belief because of some experience or something that you were taught. And sometimes you are not even aware of what it is. You just know that you react in a particular way to certain things, right? What you believe directs how you live. And then, of course, the value of your 5 physical senses. Remember, they're valuable. We need them to function on the physical plane, but don't overvalue them. They're not more valuable than life. And do you know and use your spiritual super senses? And yes, Deidre, you're going to do your affirmations. Proud of you. I am me. I love the me that I am. And when you get into the habit of it, you realize that it makes a big difference. So, as we go to the close, let me remind you to love yourself. It's the only self you have. Love your life. It's the only life you know. Live abundantly. It's your birthright. Love God. It's your purpose for being here. It was a joy being with you. Oh, how time flies when you're having fun. And I thank you. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Looking forward to being with you again. So thank you. God bless you. Sweet dreams. Bye.